Traversing through the previous Zhang Qiling, gain full-level Qilin bloodline at the beginning, and conspire with the 9 gates for the ultimate plan. Crush the conspiracy of it, confront the Wang family, infiltrate the Yin Soldier Brigade, enter the Bronze Gate, explore the meteorite in the West Queen Mother's underground palace, protect the Zhang family, and lay out for 30 years. Little brother. Perhaps only he can unlock the ultimate secret. Naive. This guy is so mysterious. Who the hell is he? Fatty guy. Follow the tough guys, eat and drink spicy food. Ding, activate the golden wheel to obtain the skill, Kuixing kick fight. Ding, activate the platinum wheel to obtain the item Dragon Yuan sword. Keywords of the novel. Tomb robbing. Stop pretending, I am from the Zhang family. No pop-ups, tomb raiding. No more, I'm from the Zhang family. Download the complete TXT collection, Tomb Raider. No more, I'm from the Zhang family. Latest chapter reading. Chapter 1. Previous Zhang Qiling. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Previous Zhang Qiling. Cheers and cheers. The sound of waves crashing against the coast came in my ears. Zhang Yinfeng's consciousness gradually recovered. Opening my hazy eyes, I found myself on a small boat, with ripples swirling around the lake, causing the boat to sway and sway. Who am I? Where am I? What am I going to do? Zhang Yinfeng looked around with a bewildered expression, asking 3 questions about the souls of each traveler. Ding. Welcome to the tomb raiding world, binding the system. Who's talking? Zhang Yinfeng looked around cautiously, but there was no one around. He couldn't help but feel curious and quickly recalled yesterday's incident. I only remember going to a bar for a drink last night. While driving, I stepped on the gas pedal to the bottom and accidentally hit a large truck. As soon as I opened my eyes, I arrived at the world of tomb raids. Yes, he traveled through time and his soul pierced onto a Zhang family member with the same name and surname as him, and this person's identity is not simple. Surprisingly, it was Zhang Qiling, the previous member of the Zhang family, who was also a core member of the ultimate plan. He guarded the Bronze Gate for 20 years, but after completing the mission, he died exhausted halfway through. And the sound just now was the system of the traveler. As the system prompt fell, a massive stream of information flooded into his mind, causing him a sudden headache. These pieces of information are about the memory of this body and the instructions for using the system. Ding. First time meeting, give the host a beginner's gift pack. Congratulations on obtaining the full-level Qilin bloodline, Hair Mound seal, and master-level tombs. Damn it, reward so many things at once. It's truly a big gift package. Zhang Yinfeng jumped up from the boat excitedly. Quickly, his body underwent a huge transformation, with muscles bulging and sturdy like a thick tire. His physique instantly reached the level of a fierce man, even his good brother was strong and full of terrifying power. In addition, the tattoo of a unicorn appeared on his body, which was powerful, just like the tattoo of the little brother in the film and television series. 2 exceptionally long hair mounds and fingers have also become incredibly hard, good guy, just like 2 drill bits. At the same time, I have also mastered a lot of tomb raiding knowledge, such as the feng shui yin yang 64 hexagram, the layout of ancient tomb mechanisms, identification of burial objects, and how to find ancient tombs through the feng shui yin yang 64 hexagram. In just an instant, he became a tomb raider. Feeling the changes on his body, Zhang Yinfeng's heart was filled with ecstasy. At this moment, a panel suddenly appeared in my mind. Divine Level Tomb Raiding System Host. Zhang Yinfeng Age. 100 out of 200 Identity. 31st Zhang Qiling of the Zhang family, Soul. Advanced, significantly increases resistance to hallucinations, noise, and mental attacks. Physical Fitness. 200, Strength, Speed, Endurance, Burst, all values are 4 times higher than the average person. Bloodline. Qilin bloodline at full level. Significantly enhances physical fitness, lifespan, peak combat power, invincibility from all kinds of poisons, intimidates evil spirits, and heals super strongly. Achievement point. Currently unavailable knowledge field. Master level Feng Shui Tombs complete, skill bar. Hair Hill double fingers, system package. Fake you seal, current task. Not triggered yet, the system is too arrogant. A beginner's gift package directly makes him the ceiling of combat power in this world, especially with the full-level Qilin bloodline, making his combat power surpass that of a young man. Searching for the memories of his predecessor, it was found that he and the younger brother were of the same generation in the family. He was slightly 10 years older than the younger brother, and he was the older brother and the younger brother was the younger brother. It's a bit interesting, I like this identity. The system also rewarded a hair mound seal, and he quickly took it out and carefully observed it in his hand. The fake you seal looks very ancient, with bird and beast cloud patterns carved on it. It is cast entirely in bronze and emits a dark blue light under the sunlight. At the bottom, there are several ancient seal characters engraved. Blessed by the heavenly officials, no taboos. According to his understanding, it can effectively restrain the Zongzi in the ancient tomb, various evil spirits, and many other unknown functions. In short, the system products must be fine. Good thing, this is the standard configuration for Fake Yu Qingguan. Zhang Yunfeng couldn't help but exclaim. Ding! Trigger a new task and enter the Lu Palace with Wu Laosan, Innocent, Little Brother, and others to check in. Completing the task will earn you mysterious rewards. Killing demons and monsters will earn you achievement points. For more exciting things, please explore on your own. Is the task coming so soon? What good things are there for mysterious rewards? Zhang Yunfeng was looking forward to the system rewards. Thinking of this, he quickly got up and found the oars, rowing the boat back to the shore. According to the memory of his predecessor, he is currently located in West Lake. Originally, Zhang Yunfeng planned to return to his family after completing the task. However, I met Qiyu, the member of the Ultimate Plan, who looked exactly like Wu Xia at the Bronze Gate. The other party knew he would come out through the bronze door today, so they waited outside early and gave him an old-fashioned flip phone. After quickly teaching him how to use it, they hurriedly left. The mobile phone address book only has one number, signed as Wu Sansheng. The other party sent him a message asking him to rush back to Hangzhou and plan the ultimate plan with them. After receiving the news, Zhang Yunfeng rushed non-stop to Hangzhou, but died halfway due to overwork, which led to his journey. After understanding the ins and outs of the situation, Zhang Yunfeng quickly fumbled in his pocket and indeed found a flip-top Motorola. Open the information bar, there is only one text message and a few missed calls. The signature is Wu Sansheng, and it has been 2 hours. Zhang Yunfeng quickly dialed the SMS number, and after a few beeps, the voice of a middle-aged man immediately came from the phone. Hello, is that Yunfeng? Why did you just call me back now? I just encountered something. I am currently on the West Lake side, please send someone to pick me up. At this time, the 3 provinces of Wu are laying out the ultimate plan, and it is now a critical period. Without Zhang Yunfeng's help, his plan will be difficult to implement. What clothes are you wearing? I'll have my eldest nephew come over to pick you up right away, Wu Laosan asked over the phone. Zhang Yunfeng looked at his clothes. He was wearing a black windbreaker, a black hat on his head, and black leather gloves with exposed fingers on his hands. He looked very cool and stylish. So he quickly told the other party about his clothes and attire. After speaking, both parties hung up the phone. After waiting by the lake for about 40 minutes, an old-fashioned golden cup van came to a stop in front of him. The car door opened and a somewhat handsome young man with an innocent face walked down from it. A pair of innocent eyes were constantly looking at him, as if looking for someone. P.S. The new book set sail, hoping to receive the love and care of all the readers. Welcome to throw in a wave of monthly tickets, recommendation tickets, investments, and give the author some motivation. Thank you. End of this chapter. Chapter 2. Guazi Temple. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Guazi Temple. This person is Wu Xie. Zhang Yunfeng gave him a faint glance and did not speak. But his sharp gaze, handsome face mixed with perseverance and vicissitudes, as well as his tall and strong body, made innocence feel an invisible sense of oppression. Naively staring at him for a while, he approached politely with some uncertainty and asked, "Hello, may I ask if it's Mr. Zhang Yunfeng?" Zhang Yunfeng nodded lightly and said, "It's me." "Okay, please come with me. My third uncle asked me to pick you up." Wu Xie pushed open the door of the Jinbei van and made a gesture of invitation. Zhang Yunfeng didn't waste any time and quickly crawled into the van. Along the way, Zhang Yunfeng didn't say a word. He leaned back in his seat, closed his eyes and looked very cold. Naive didn't dare to talk to him, so she had to drive the van on her own, despite having many doubts in her heart. Half an hour later, the van stopped outside a tea house in the suburbs, with a plaque reading, Wu Shanju Tea House, in several powerful seal characters. A group of people had been waiting in place for a long time. Led by a middle-aged man in his 40s, dressed in a vintage suit with a scruffy beard on his face, his eyes revealing the maturity and vicissitudes of the middle-aged man, he was staring at Zhang Yunfeng and innocent as they walked off the van. This person is Wu Laosan. In addition to him, there were several young men standing next to him, one was De Kuei and the other was Pan Zi. What caught Zhang Yunfeng's attention the most was a young man who was also wearing a black trench coat, carrying an ancient knife, handsome in appearance, with a symmetrical figure and calm eyes like water. This person is none other than little brother Zhang Qiling. After seeing Zhang Yunfeng, the young man's originally calm eyes suddenly rippled. The stranger in front of him gave him a feeling of blood connection, as if he was his long-lost relative, making him unable to resist wanting to get closer. In fact, Zhang Yunfeng also had this feeling. After all, both of them are Qilin bloodline and cousins of the same family. It is normal to have this feeling, but he did not show it at all. He just gave him a faint glance and then shifted his gaze to someone else. "Uncle San, I have brought it back for you." Nai Tian closed the car door and said to Wu Laosan. Wu Laosan nodded and walked quickly to Zhang Yunfeng, saying, "Yunfeng, you have finally arrived. Let me introduce you to you. This is Pan Zi, this is De Kuei, and this is my eldest nephew." Finally, Wu Laosan pointed his finger at the young man and said, "You must know this young man, right? I won't introduce him." Zhang Yunfeng nodded. As his elder brother, he had taken him out for training when he was a child. How could he not recognize him? Wu Laosan solemnly introduced Zhang Yunfeng's identity to everyone. "Let me introduce you to him. This is the expert I invited from the way. Zhang Yunfeng. This operation will be led by Yunfeng, and everyone must obey the command." After listening to Wu Laosan's words, everyone looked puzzled, but when the boss spoke, they dared not say anything more. Wu Laosan looked at his watch and said, "It's getting late, everyone should rest early." After everyone left, Wu Laosan called Zhang Yunfeng to a hidden room and said, "Qiyu has been targeted by them and it's inconvenient to move. I hope you can understand." Zhang Yunfeng didn't speak and nodded. Then, Wu Laosan said again, "Do you still remember what happened inside the bronze door?" Zhang Yunfeng shook his head and said, "I don't remember. All the memories about the bronze door were erased by a mysterious force." "It's okay. You take a break first, we'll set off for the Lu Palace tomorrow." The next morning, after having breakfast, everyone took an early car to the Guazi Temple in Shandong. 3 days later, they arrived near the Guazi Temple, and then took a motorcycle and ox cart. After 2 days and 2 nights of trekking, they finally arrived at the Guazi temple. After arriving at the place, Pan Zi immediately went to find a local guide, who was an old man in his 50s and 60s, leading a big yellow dog. Wu Laosan looked at the big yellow dog and smiled at the old man, saying, "Old man, we shouldn't ride this big yellow dog on the next road, should we? That's really annoying." The old man smiled and said, "The boss is joking. This dog is used for reporting. We won't take a car from now on, we'll have to take a boat. The rhubarb will bring the boat over." "Oh, can this dog swim?" Wu Laosan asked curiously. "You're really good at swimming." The old man patted the head of the big yellow dog. "Donkey eggs, go over and perform for them." The big yellow dog was extremely human and understood the old man's words in an instant. It jumped directly into the river with a splash, swam around, and then climbed back to the shore, shaking its fur and throwing water droplets, while sticking out its big tongue. At this moment, Zhang Yunfeng suddenly walked towards the dog, sniffed it with his nose, and suddenly smelled a faint smell of corpses, indicating that dogs grew up eating dead human flesh from a young age, and only then did they have an indelible smell of corpses. He didn't show any surprise on his face and walked slowly to Wu Laosan's side, telling him what had happened. Wu Laosan frowned and said that the cave must be very dangerous, and it is highly likely that it was a place where the boatman and the old man conspired for wealth and life. He quickly urged everyone to be careful. "Brother, when can we set off?" Wu Laosan looked at the sky and said. "It's still early, so the boatman must not have woken up yet. We'll have to wait until he wakes up before we can set off." "Let's wait," the old man said as he pulled out his dry cigarette and smoked it. Naive Nai became a bit anxious upon hearing this and glanced at his watch, saying, "Old man, what is the boatman's schedule? It's already 2 p.m. this afternoon and he hasn't started yet." The old man shook his head helplessly and said with a smile, "Young man, there's nothing we can do. He's the only one who can go over here, and other river gods don't give face. If you're in a hurry, you can ride mules over the mountain. There happen to be more than 10 mules in our village, but it will take a day." Just as everyone was speaking, 2 small boats rowed down from the upper reaches of the river, and there stood a person standing on top, supporting a long bamboo pole. This person was the boatman. After seeing the man, the old man smiled and said to the crowd, "Here we are. You guys are lucky. The boatman got up early today." Everyone's eyes turned towards the boatman, who was a middle-aged man in his 40s and 50s, with many tire spots on his face, black and red, and a mangy head. He looked a bit eerie, belonging to the kind of appearance that couldn't even eat. When sitting together, the old man told everyone that the boatman was an old bachelor who, due to his poor appearance and poor family, had not yet gotten married. During the conversation, the ship came to the side of everyone. Wu Laosan negotiated the price with the other party and immediately ordered everyone to put the equipment on the ship, and the people also crowded in. But just then, the boatman suddenly brought 2 big water buffaloes. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Suspicious Boatman. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Suspicious Boatmen. Both are water buffalo. They are very large and weigh at least 1,000 pounds. Everyone looked bewildered, completely unaware of what the boatman wanted to do. "Shouldn't even these 2 cows have to be brought in, right? Master, what are you doing?" Wu Laosan asked in confusion. The boatman said, "It's not peaceful inside. If you don't bring 2 cows, you'll get into trouble. Those things are afraid of cows." "Oh, what exactly is there in this cave?" Wu Laosan pretended not to know. "There are vengeful souls inside, and many people don't come out after entering. The river god only sells my face," the boatman said as he built 2 boards and drove the cow onto the boat. "If you want to pass safely, don't ask so many questions." Everyone saw that he didn't want to say anything more and didn't ask much, but they became even more wary of this guy. "Wait a moment. When you enter the cave, be sure to speak softly and not disturb the river god. The boatman said solemnly to everyone, especially don't speak ill of the river god, otherwise it will be very troublesome. This guy's expression is very serious, it doesn't seem like he's joking at all. If someone doesn't know, they will definitely believe it, but how can people be so easily deceived? Don't worry, our people understand the rules very well. How long will it take to get there? Wu Laosan asked again. The river inside is turbulent, and the road is not very long. It will take at most 10 minutes to pass, the boatman replied. After finishing speaking, I pulled the diesel engine hard and suddenly made a loud roar. The two ships slowly headed towards the nearby cave. The ship quickly arrived outside the cave, which was very narrow, with an entrance that was only 20.30 centimeters larger than the ship. The terrain was very low, and one had to lower their head and waist to pass. Being in a narrow environment, everyone's vigilance has increased. If someone were to plot against them here, they would have no choice but to avoid it. Pan Zi leaned down on the deck and said, "Damn it, isn't this hole really shabby? It's like drilling a dog's hole like that." "This is quite big, there's a narrower road ahead," the boatman said without looking back as he controlled the direction of the ship. Pan Zi asked knowingly, "If someone were to rob such a small hole, wouldn't we be unable to escape even if we wanted to?" As soon as these words were spoken, the boatman's face immediately changed, with a guilty look on his face, but it was soon concealed again. Everyone saw his expression and thought to themselves that there was indeed a problem with this guy. In just a few seconds, this section of the road passed and the space inside became wider, but even darker. Pan quickly turned on a mining lamp to illuminate the direction ahead. De Kuei's eyes were good. He looked up and discovered a cave entrance. He quickly said to Wu Laosan, "Third master, there is a thief's hole here." Wu Laosan looked up at the thief cave and said, "It's interesting. This is a water thief cave, ancient and nearby. This thief cave has been around for some time, so it seems that there may be another world inside. Boss, do you seem to have some background?" "You're right," the boatman said calmly as he supported the boat with his cat waist. "I heard from the old man that this whole mountain used to be an ancient tomb, and there were quite a few water thief holes of different sizes. This one is the largest and deepest, and you can see it. I'm afraid the water wasn't as high at that time, so it should still be a dry cave." "Oh, it seems you know a lot." Wu Laosan took out a cigarette and politely handed it over. The boatman turned around and put the cigarette in his ear, saying, "I'm not an expert, I've been doing this job here all along. I've heard and seen a lot, so naturally I can say a few words." Despite everyone chatting and laughing with the boatman, they are actually very vigilant in their hearts. At this moment, everyone has already placed their hands on the knife, ready to deal with any unexpected situation at any time. At this moment, Zhang Yunfeng, who was sitting at the bow of the boat, suddenly turned around and gestured to everyone not to speak, while pointing ahead with his finger, gesturing for everyone to listen. Everyone quickly closed their mouths and heard a rustling sound coming from ahead. It sounded like someone was talking or singing, but upon closer inspection, they couldn't tell what it was. Just as they were all wondering who was ahead, Pan Zi's voice suddenly came from behind. "Not good, third master, that guy ran away." Everyone turned around and saw that the boatman sitting on the back ship had disappeared at some point. "Pan Zi, where has he gone?" Wu Laosan shouted anxiously. "I don't know, I didn't hear the sound of falling into the water." Pan Zi pointed to the thief hole on his finger. "I was distracted by the sound just now, maybe I slipped away from the thief hole above my head. It's troublesome now. We don't have any corpse gas on us, so we'll definitely bring out the demons and monsters inside." Wu Laosan looked at everyone with regret and asked, "Who of you has eaten dead human flesh?" Everyone shook their heads, indicating that no one had ever eaten dead human flesh. At this moment, the hull suddenly shook violently, as if it had hit something. Everyone quickly used flashlights to shine into the water, and saw a huge black shadow swimming through the water. De Kuei had the least courage in the team. When he saw the dark shadow, he was immediately frightened and collapsed on the ground. He pointed at the water surface with a lifeless face and stuttered for a long time, unable to speak. Wu Laosan angrily gave him a big mouth and cursed, "You useless thing. What are you trembling about? They didn't even scare you like this, why did you go to eat shit with them for so many years? My mother. San Yi, this thing is too big. I'm afraid we're not enough for it to cook." De Kuei looked at the water with lingering fear, moving his body towards the center of the boat, afraid that something might suddenly jump out of the water and take him away. Wu Laosan spat in thick phlegm and said, "Oh my goodness. We need guys with guys and experts present. Even if Yan Wangya comes, he will have to be skinned. I've been playing with sand for so long, haven't I seen any demons or monsters? Why don't you fart here?" Pan Zi was also frightened enough. He swallowed his saliva hard and said to Wu Laosan, "Third master, calm down. This cave is strange, and everyone is in a state of panic. As the saying goes, those who know current affairs are heroes. Why don't we go out first and wait until we get out?" As soon as he spoke, De Kuei nodded repeatedly, expressing his agreement. The incident just now had frightened him. However, Wu Laosan is the boss. If he doesn't nod, even if there is fierce competition ahead, they will have to grit their teeth. Therefore, the final decision will depend on Wu Laosan. So everyone's eyes turn towards him in unison. Wu Laosan has always been a domineering person, having his own opinions on everything he does, and once he makes a decision, others are easily unable to change it. Just as everyone was waiting for him to make a decision, Wu Laosan turned to Zhang Yunfeng and asked, "Yunfeng, do you think we can still leave?" End of this chapter. Chapter 4. A brief exhibition of skills. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. A brief exhibition of skills. When everyone saw Wu Laosan's actions, they were all very surprised. Their eyes were all fixed on Zhang Yunfeng, thinking to themselves, what is this guy's ability that deserves Wu Laosan's attention so much? Zhang Yunfeng poked his 2 hair mounds and fingers into the water and said without looking back, "The water flows downstream. The terrain here is narrow, and our load is too heavy. It's impossible to go back. Keep walking." Upon hearing this, Wu Laosan nodded and said, I'll listen to you. Let's keep moving forward." Seeing Wu Laosan agreeing to Zhang Yunfeng's suggestion, everyone couldn't help but become more curious about Zhang Yunfeng's identity. Wu Xie secretly asked Pan Zi, "What exactly is this guy from? Why does third uncle trust him so much?" "I'm not very sure, I only know that this guy has dealt with third master a few times before and is very skilled, not an ordinary person." Pan Zi pointed at Zhang Yunfeng with his chin. "Look at his hands, his index and middle fingers are obviously longer than ordinary people. These are the legendary hair mound double fingers, and it takes several decades of practice to achieve such results. Previously, I didn't pay much attention to Zhang Yunfeng's hands, so I looked carefully and found that, as Pan Zi said, Zhang Yunfeng's index and middle fingers were several centimeters longer than those of ordinary people." Upon seeing this, Naive couldn't help but think of his grandfather's tomb raiding notes, which contained a record about Fakyu Zhonglang General. It was said that Fakyu's double fingers were extremely powerful and as hard as gold and stone, and could easily crack the mechanisms in the tomb. To become such a skilled worker, one must start practicing from a young age, and the process involved was extremely painful and unbearable. In fact, it is also true that the Zhang family, as a branch of the Fa Qiu Zhonglang Jiang family, has been practicing their Fa Qiu double fingers since childhood. From the beginning, they poked sand, to the end, they poked stones and iron beads, step by step. This process is extremely painful and often leads to fractures. Every person who can practice hair, mound, and double fingers is a mentally exceptional person who has suffered a lot since childhood, which has led to the children of the Zhang family being relatively isolated and not liking to interact with others. At this moment, the large black shadow I had seen before suddenly came downstream from the bottom of the water. Almost at the same time, Zhang Yunfeng and the young man both poked their fingers into the water at lightning speed. With a flash of white light, their hands had already retracted from the water, holding a bug in their hands. Everyone was stunned by their actions, and Zheng looked at them speechless. Zhang Yunfeng and the young man did not expect that they would take action at the same time, both looking at each other. This is probably the tacit understanding of blood connections. The young man looked at him with confusion in his eyes, seemingly unable to understand why this guy also possesses their family's unique skills. Zhang Yunfeng appeared very calm as he threw the insect in his hand onto the deck and said to the crowd, "The black shadow just now is this thing." Everyone lowered their heads and saw that it was a bug with a black body and a shape resembling a large flea. It had a pair of claws and a very hard shell, emitting an unpleasant corpse odor all over. After naively looking at it, she let out a sigh of relief and said, "Isn't this a dragon louse? I thought it was some big monster." De Kuei learned that the huge black figure just now was composed of a group of insects. He immediately felt embarrassed and wanted to find a place. He stepped forward and crushed the insect, cursing and saying, "Damn it, it turned out to be a group of disgusting insects. It scared me." Zhang Yunfeng immediately shook his head and said, "This is not a dragon lice, this is a corpse lice." As soon as these words were spoken, everyone looked bewildered, clearly not having heard of this term or knowing what it was. Only Wu Laosan furrowed his brows and quickly picked up the insect to smell it. His face was shocked and he said, "Not bad, this is indeed a corpse." "Uncle San, what is a corpse?" asked naively and curiously. Wu Laosan stared at the pitch-black cave ahead and frowned, saying, "This thing makes a living by eating carrion. There are many places with dead objects and the longer they eat, the larger they get, so they are called corpse mounds. It seems that there must be a piece of land upstream where corpses accumulate, and what we inferred before is correct. San Yi, then. Does this thing bite people?" De Kuei asked nervously. "If it's a normal size, then it definitely won't bite people, but this one size is outrageous, and I can't be sure if it will bite people." Wu Laosan was very frustrated. These things usually stay in places with many dead bodies, so theoretically they don't swim around frequently. Why are so many things emerging now? Are they migrating? At this moment, the young man suddenly said, "I think he's running for his life." "What? Escape for life?" Pan Zi swallowed hard. "Is there anything more terrifying than them in this hole?" The young man nodded and said, "I always feel like something is coming towards us, and it's very dangerous. Everyone, be careful." "No, I don't know, little brother. Don't scare me. I'm most afraid of these indescribable things, even a group of bandits. I don't take them seriously, but I don't know what they are. How can I do this?" "My legs are weak," said De Kuei with a pale expression. Bang! Wu Laosan slapped De Kuei hard again and angrily scolded, "You're useless. You used to brag about how powerful you are, but now you haven't even seen a ghost, which scared you to death. Don't say you're messing around with me, Wu Laosan, in the future." During the conversation, the ship arrived at a very narrow and low entrance, which was much smaller than the entrance. The ship needed a little bit to squeeze in, and people had to lie on the deck, otherwise even if they were half squatting, their heads would touch the cave. What's even more troublesome is that there are still 2 cows on the ship. The cows are definitely not tall enough to enter the cave, even if they squat. Now they can understand why the boatman has to pull the 2 cows onto the ship. It turns out that they are trying to block them here. The weight of the cow is too heavy, causing the boat behind to have a deep draft, and people are likely to sink as soon as they get on board. Moreover, both boats are tied together with thick iron chains. In this way, the boat behind is like a stopper, blocking the boat ahead. It can be said that the intention is malicious. "Oh no, third master, we need to drive the cows into the water, otherwise we won't be able to get in at all," Pan Zi said with a furrowed brow. Hurry up and get out of this place as soon as possible. Wu Laosan quickly urged. Pan Zi responded and prepared to jump onto the ship. But at this moment, a strange sound suddenly came from inside the cave. The sound was rapidly approaching, and it sounded like countless women whispering, making the person's scalp tingle. The sudden scene startled everyone, and everyone instinctively listened to the sound. However, as soon as the sound entered their ears, it immediately made their consciousness blur and their heads ache. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Benefits of Advanced Souls. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5 Benefits of Advanced Souls. In an instant, everyone was hit, and the eerie sound made their heads ache and they all collapsed to the ground, curling up in a ball. Even Zhang Yunfeng was affected, of course, as a traveler with a high-level soul, he only managed to get rid of the harassment of that sound in 1 or 2 seconds and return to normal. Looking at the others all collapse to the ground, holding their heads in both hands, their expressions were extremely painful, and even blood flowed out of their 7 orifices. It is not difficult to see from this that this eerie voice can attack a person's soul. If left unchecked, everyone will either die of brain damage or become vegetative. Thinking of these, Zhang Yunfeng couldn't help but pick up a bucket of water and fill it with water, splashing it on everyone with a loud splash. After this operation, the young man woke up hastily. The others also gradually regained consciousness, but one by one, their expressions were lethargic, as if they had fallen ill. Yunfeng, what's going on? Wu Laosan asked with a panicked expression. There's a problem with that sound. You cover your ears, I'll take care of it. Zhang Yunfeng poured the last bucket of water onto Wu Xia and said. Strangely enough, at this moment the voice suddenly stopped. Quickly, everyone woke up and looked around with a frightened expression, appearing very panicked. The pain of their souls being torn apart just now was really terrifying. At this moment, a sound of knowing and groaning suddenly came from above. Everyone looked up and found a thief hole right above. Suddenly, a bloody face popped out of the thief hole with a loud bang. Ghost. The timid de Kuei was so scared that he let out a scream and fell into the water with a splash. The others were also startled by this face. At this moment, Zhang Yunfeng suddenly rushed towards the face, grabbed his head, and carefully looked at it. Don't be afraid, this is the boatman. Everyone looked carefully and found that it was indeed the boatman. Then he looked into the thief's hole and suddenly saw a disgusting scene. He saw that the boatman's body was only half left, being held by a big bug that was the size of a football, eating the boatman's intestines and occasionally shaking it, which was very disgusting. Seeing this, everyone almost vomited out their overnight meal, and at the same time, they were extremely shocked. They couldn't understand why this corpse turtle could grow so big, and how much dead human flesh would it have to eat. The big bug has a strong sense of territory, as if afraid of someone competing with it for food. Surprisingly, it released the body of the boatman, kicked a few legs, and flew straight towards Zhang Yunfeng with a whoosh. Be careful! Everyone exclaimed in surprise. Zhang Yunfeng's incredible skills almost made him turn his head and dodge the insect as it flew towards him. At the same time, he lightning fast extended his hair-mound fingers and grabbed the insect in the air. The entire action only occurred within a few seconds, and by the time everyone reacted, the big bug had already been tightly caught by him. Crunching. The big bug desperately swung its claws, making a piercing friction sound, but no matter how hard it struggled, it couldn't break free from those 2 fingers, as if it was not 2 fingers holding it, but 2 steel bars. Upon seeing this, the young man quickly stepped forward and inserted his finger into the back of the big bug, pulling out a white, macaroni-like object. The bug, which was still struggling, immediately froze. De Kuei immediately gave Zhang Yunfeng a thumbs up and said in admiration, "You're truly a master. You're so fierce. Such a big bug, you caught it with one hand." He said to the little brother again, "You're really amazing, little brother. You even pulled out the intestines of the insect in one go. I really admire you, don't you? Don't pretend to understand if you don't understand. That's not the intestines, it's the central nervous system. Look at your culture. Pan Zi also looked at the two of them in admiration. You guys are really fierce. In just a few seconds, you managed to get rid of this big bug. Third Master, this bug is too scary. If you want me to tell you, just cut it down with one knife to avoid biting people indiscriminately, said De Kuei. The young man shook his head and said, we can't kill it yet. We still need to rely on it to get out of the way. Not bad, this corpse turtle has a strong corpse aura. Carrying it can avoid a lot of trouble. Zhang Yunfeng nodded in agreement and threw the bug onto the deck. Ding-ling ding-ling. At the moment when the insect landed, a crisp bell suddenly sounded, and everyone suddenly felt a pain in their brains. Fortunately, the sound only lasted for 1 or 2 seconds before stopping. The young man showed confusion on his face and immediately squatted on the ground, flipping the bug over. He saw a hexagonal bronze bell the size of a ping-pong ball tied to its tail, rusty and engraved with dense ancient texts. It seemed to have been around for quite some time. It seems that the sound we heard earlier was made by this bell. What kind of bell is this? Why is it so powerful? It's really strange, Wu Laosan said with a puzzled expression. At this moment, the bell suddenly started to move on its own, emitting a series of ethereal sounds, which were very eerie, as if coming from the underworld. It shook people's consciousness and made them feel a headache splitting. Upon seeing this, Zhang Yunfeng quickly reached out and grabbed the bell, and the eerie sound came to an abrupt end. Everyone was drenched in cold sweat, and Zhang Yunfeng suddenly looked at Innocent and said, give me a piece of chewing gum. Naive was stunned for a moment, not knowing what he wanted to do, but he didn't dare to ask more. He quickly took out a piece of chewing gum and handed it to him. Zhang Yunfeng took the chewing gum and threw it into his mouth. He chewed it casually for 2 bites before spitting it out again. He blocked the chewing gum he had eaten into the bell's horn and casually threw the bell onto the ground. The bell has been blocked, so there is no need to worry about making a sound anymore. De Kuei was already frightened. He was careful that the bell would still turn into a demon, so he simply stepped on it and smashed it with a loud bang, emitting a foul-smelling green juice. Wu Laosan was so angry that he cursed loudly, damn it, who let you step on it? This thing is an ancient artifact that can be worth a lot of money. De Kuei still felt aggrieved and quickly explained that it was for everyone's good. Wu Laosan didn't have the heart to care about these things. He looked at the half-body of the boatman hanging at the top of the cave and said, he wants to throw us into this hole, wait for us to be eaten by insects, and then come back to retrieve our things. I don't know what happened today, but instead, he was eaten by insects. He really deserves it. Pan Zi frowned and said, Third Master, these insects are not big enough to tear a person in half in a short time. I estimate there are still many corpses here. This big bug must have been the one who, after dismembering, took the other half of the body and hid here to eat alone. We need to be careful. End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Corpse Accumulation Land. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 6 Corpse Accumulation Land. As soon as Pan Zi finished speaking, a dense sound came from the thief hole above, listening as if countless insects were crawling. Some fast insects have climbed onto the body of the boatman and are devouring flesh and blood in large bites, followed by countless densely packed corpses rushing up. Hurry up! Zhang Yunfeng urged. After the insects finish eating the corpse, they will probably have to eat live people, so they cannot stay here for a long time. But the 2 cows are still on the boat. If we don't handle them, we won't be able to get into that narrow cave. Just as everyone was in a hurry to drive the cow into the water, Zhang Yunfeng suddenly jumped into the water with a splash and quickly swam towards the boat behind him. Then, he extended his hair-mound fingers and lightning struck the cow's body. When Newton was startled, he jumped straight into the water with a thud, rushing upstream as if encountering some extremely terrifying natural enemy. At this moment, no one had the heart to care about the life and death of the cow, so they quickly rowed the boat into the cave. Fortunately, this road was not very long, and it only took 1 or 2 minutes to drive over. The terrain ahead suddenly became clear, and some places were even as big as a football field. At this moment, Zhang Yunfeng suddenly raised his finger to the front and gestured for everyone to look. Everyone looked in the direction of his finger and saw clusters of green phosphorescence deep in the cave. The phosphorescence flickers in the darkness, some even drifting back and forth, looking quite eerie, indicating that there are many animal corpses in this cave, and phosphorescence is emitted from these corpses. Wu Laosan said to the crowd, "Be careful, we have arrived at the site of the accumulation of corpses." After listening to his words, everyone quickly perked up their spirits. Because this section of the road is the most dangerous part of the entire cave. On the other hand, Zhang Yunfeng and the young man did not show much change in their expressions, as if this road was no different from an ordinary one for them. Seeing their calm demeanor, everyone felt a lot more at ease. Wu Laosan took out a double-barreled hunting rifle from his backpack and said to the crowd, "Show off your moves. If you encounter something later, shoot 2 shots first. Those who care are ghosts. Pan Zi, you divide all the guys among everyone." Wu Laosan called out. "Okay, Third Master." Pan Zi responded and opened one of the backpacks, which contained several hunting guns. He drew out the gun and distributed it among the people one by one. But when it was Zhang Yunfeng's turn, he waved his hand and said, "I don't need it, you keep it for use." It turned out that he despised this gun for being too outdated. He could only shoot 2 shots and had to reload. With his understanding of the upcoming plot and his skills, he didn't need a gun at all. Pan Zi didn't dare to say anything more when he didn't take the gun. A few minutes later, the ship entered a football-sized cave, surrounded by green ghostly flames, and then they saw a terrifying scene. On both sides of the cave, on the shallow beach, there were corpses everywhere, densely packed and stacked, making it difficult to distinguish whether they were human or animal. Nearest to the inside, there are rows of skeletons stacked neatly, clearly artificially stacked. The corpses near the outside appear very messy. Upon closer inspection, it can be seen that besides human corpses, there are also many animal corpses, such as cows and horses, and even many that have not completely decayed. The appearance of these corpses is wrapped in a thin layer like cling film, and countless dead turtles crawl around the pile of corpses, occasionally drilling out a few from their mouths or nostrils, making the viewer feel nauseous. Fortunately, the corpses here are not as big as the one they caught, and most of them are about the size of a fist. All the insects are competing for the decaying corpses, even killing each other. The big ones eat the small ones, and the small ones eat the smaller ones, which is very disgusting. It seems that these corpses drifted down from upstream and were stranded here. Everyone be careful and pay attention to the surroundings. Wu Laosan shouted to the crowd. De Kuei's eyes turned quickly, and he seemed to have noticed something. He quickly pointed in one direction and said to the crowd, "Look, there's something there." Everyone looked in the direction of his fingers and saw a green crystal coffin embedded in an almost vertical cave wall. Inside, there seemed to be a female corpse wearing a white robe, but it was a bit far away and the details were not clear. "There's also one over there." Pan Zi pointed to the other side and said. Everyone looked towards the other side and found that there was indeed a crystal coffin on the other side of the mountain wall, but the coffin was empty. "I don't know where the body went. Strange. Why is the body missing?" Wu Laosan said in confusion. "Damn, the corpse will not become a Zongzi, have you run away by yourself?" De Kuei said nervously. "Shut up. Don't fart." Wu Laosan took out a black donkey's hoof from his backpack and said viciously, "Even if there is really Zongzi, I will call him a loser." However, they seemed to be skeptical. The ship quickly sailed out of the cave and was about to enter a turning point, but nothing strange happened. Everyone couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. But just as the ship entered the turning point and bypassed a pile of corpses, the Kuei suddenly let out a loud scream, then flipped his eyes and fainted in fear. His expression was very frightened, as if he had seen something extremely terrifying. The crowd didn't pay much attention to him. They fixed their eyes on the front and saw a woman in a white dress, with her back facing them. Her long hair reached her waist and she was suspended in mid-air, motionless. The mining lamp shone over her, but there was no shadow. Everyone took a cold breath when they saw the situation. "Sorry, Zhongzi is here." Pan Zi swallowed a mouthful of saliva and said with a white face. Wu Laosan patted him. "Pan Zi, take out the hoof of the 82-year-old black donkey. I'm afraid it's 1,000-year-old Zhongzi. I'm afraid the new one won't accept it." Pan Zi quickly opened his backpack, took out a dry black donkey hoof, and handed it to him after at least a decade of storage. Wu Laosan took the black donkey's hooves and kicked the Kuei, who had fallen to the ground, to the side. He then spat a few mouthfuls of saliva on his hand, revealing a look of death as if he were returning home and saying, "I've seen it clearly. Let's see what the third uncle means. This is a rare 1,000-year-old Zhongzi. If I miss it, my nephew, you will shoot my Tianling guy and let the third uncle go more happily." Naive quickly grabbed him and said, "Uncle San, are you sure? If you're not sure, why don't you provoke her? I'm afraid I won't be able to take action then." Upon hearing this, Wu Laosan almost lost his breath and was about to curse when he heard the young man beside him say, "Black donkey hooves are used to deal with zombies. I'm afraid this thing is not zombies. Let me do it." End of this chapter. Chapter 7. Conquering the Corpse Charm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. Conquering the Corpse Charm. The young man pulled out the black and golden ancient sword from behind, without saying a word, and directly slashed at the back of his hand, suddenly making a several centimeter long cut, bleeding profusely. Then the young man clenched his palm and squeezed out a large amount of fresh blood, dripping into the water. The surrounding corpses suddenly ran around like encountering natural enemies, rushing around like a tide and retreating to one side. After doing this, my brother suddenly raised his hand and threw a few drops of blood towards the white-dressed woman Zhongzi. The blood was dropped on the female Zhongzi's clothes. The female Zhongzi gave a shrill cry of, "Ah!" and even knelt down directly. When everyone saw this scene, they immediately froze in place. Only Zhang Yunfeng appeared calm and composed, sitting still in place, not shocked by the young man's methods. "Damn it, this guy really has two talents," Pan Zi said. At this moment, the young man suddenly shouted to the crowd without looking back, "Hurry up, don't look back." No one dared to delay, so they quickly rowed the boat with all their might and sailed into a gradually shrinking entrance ahead. However, his innocent curiosity was too strong. He couldn't help but want to see what the female corpse looked like. As he was about to leave the burial ground without any accidents, he thought to himself that it was okay not to look back, but to see the reflection on the water surface. So he looked at the reflection in the water, but this look almost scared him to death and caused trouble for everyone. The corpse ghost not far away sensed the abnormality of innocence, and with a swoosh, the speed was so fast that it was difficult to distinguish with the naked eye. Everyone saw a white figure flickering and disappearing, instantly floating onto the back of Innocence, and constantly drilling into his body, as if wanting to be entrusted to him. "No, be careful, big nephew," Wu Laosan exclaimed in surprise. But it was too late. Naive, through the reflection in the water, saw a disheveled female ghost lying on his back. Before he could react, she was already possessed by a corpse demon and fainted in an instant. Everyone's hearts thumped for a moment. Upon seeing this, the young man's face suddenly darkened. He was about to release some blood to drive away the corpse demon, but was stopped by Zhang Yunfeng on the side. "Let me do it," It turned out that he had seen his little brother release a lot of blood. If he could release it again, it would probably take more than half a month to make up for it. He couldn't bear it, after all, it was his cousin, so he planned to do it himself. Upon hearing this, the young man looked at him in surprise, but remained silent, as if wanting to see if he had any means to deal with the corpse. Without hesitation, Zhang Yunfeng directly took out the fake Yu seal from the system package and recited, "Blessed by the heavenly officials, there are no taboos." Then he pressed the fake Yu seal onto the innocent forehead. A eerie scene appeared, and as the hair mound imprint pressed against Naive's forehead, it suddenly let out a growl and emitted a large stream of blue smoke. Naive opened her blood-red eyes and let out a ghostly scream. Ah! Then a phantom female ghost figure flew out of her innocent body, only to see a pale and decaying woman's face under her long hair, with deep sunken eyes, very terrifying. She stared at Zhang Yunfeng with a resentful expression on her face, her spiritual body quickly turned into ashes, and disappeared without a trace in an instant. Ding! Kill the corpse charm and reward 1,000 achievement points. You still need 9,000 achievement points to activate the bronze wheel. This operation immediately dumbfounded everyone, and everyone stared at him with a bewildered expression. Even the young man's gaze towards him was filled with fear and doubt, and he became increasingly curious about Zhang Yunfeng's identity. Seeing everyone stunned on the spot, Zhang Yunfeng quickly urged, "What are you still staring at? Get out of here." Upon hearing his voice, everyone quickly regained their senses and propped up their boat to sail towards the cave ahead. The cave in front is similar to the one we came in before. After leaving this cave, we came outside and there is a dock not far away. Everyone struggled to push the boat to the dock and happened to encounter a local person passing by. After inquiring, they found out that it was a village located in a big mountain with a guest house inside. At present, both Innocence and Dakue have fainted, and the young man has also been injured and cannot continue on his journey. Therefore, he quickly brought his belongings and checked into the guest house. The conditions of the guest house are very rudimentary. The house is still an old one from the 1980s and 1990s, but fortunately there is a restaurant with hot water. After checking into the guest house, everyone immediately sought out the doctor at the guest house and checked everyone's injuries. The doctor said that Dakue and Naijun were only overly frightened and temporarily unconscious. They slept and were fine. Then I found some herbs and applied them to the young man's hand. I wrapped them in bandages a few times, gave him a shot of antibiotics, and gave him some anti-inflammatory drugs. Then I hurriedly left with the medicine box. At this point, the stone hanging in everyone's heart was finally released. There was nothing to say overnight. That night, in a coma, Naive had a nightmare. He dreamed of a woman wearing white clothes with her back facing him. Naive wanted to see her face clearly, so he ran ahead to take a look. Strangely enough, even if he ran ahead, what he saw was always the back of a woman. Curious and naive, he repeatedly ran around the woman without believing in evil, but it seemed that all he could see was her back. Naive finally realized that this woman had two backs on both sides, and no matter how she looked, it was impossible to see in front. She was suddenly frightened and exclaimed. When she opened her eyes, she found that it was already the afternoon of the second day. Panzi by the bed saw him wake up and smiled, saying, "Young third master, you've finally woken up." Naive looked around in confusion and asked, "Where is this? Have we come out?" Panzi pointed out the window and said, "Well, if it weren't for the presence of experts, we wouldn't have been able to come out. You're really good, young master. Why do you want to look into the water? You almost killed us." Panzi explained the rest of the story, and it was only then that Naijun understood what was going on. "Damn it, it turned out that guy knocked on my head. Damn it, he hit me hard enough. It was close to smashing my head open." Naive rubbed his head and cursed. Panzi smiled and said, "All right, third master. Don't blame him anymore. didn't you say you shouldn't look back? Who made you blind? You didn't know you almost killed us, but fortunately that guy took action. Naive has regained consciousness, thinking of the female ghost lying on her back. Unconsciously, she touched her back to see if it was still behind her. Fortunately there was nothing. Don't worry, that thing has already been taken care of by Brother Feng. Pan Zi laughed heartily. Feng Gu. Pan Zi, you have such thick-skinned face. You've only known each other for a few days and started calling me brother. Speaking of which, what exactly is that female ghost? Why is it so evil? Naively asked curiously. Author's words. Let me tell you an important thing. The author only publishes books after saving 100,000 manuscripts. They have 100,000 words of saved manuscripts in their hands, and the minimum daily update is 6,000 words. Everyone can read them with confidence, without worrying about sudden interruptions. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Little Brother is Urgent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8. Little Brother is Urgent. Pan Zi explained. Brother Feng said that it was called the corpse ghost, that is, the soul of the female Zhongzi. She wanted to attach herself to you and borrow your yang to go out. This thing is difficult to get around. As long as she attaches herself, within 3 days, your yang will be sucked up by her, and then you will die suddenly. Fortunately, he saved you. Pan Zi took a deep breath, and then said. And the little brother, who is not an ordinary person, can make the female Zhongzi kneel, which is shocking. Little third uncle, these two people are not simple, you must not offend them. At this moment, footsteps came from outside the house. Looking back, it turned out to be Wu Lao-san who had walked into the house. As he walked, he said, "You're lucky this time, kid. If it weren't for their actions, you might have had a lot of bad luck this time." After listening to Pan Zi's description, Naive became even more curious about the identities of Zhang Yunfeng and the young man. She quickly asked Wu Lao-san, "Third uncle, what are those two guys from? Why are they so powerful?" In fact, Wu Lao-san is very clear about the identities of Zhang Yunfeng and the young man, but at this time he is laying out the ultimate plan, so it is naturally impossible for him to tell the truth to innocents. So he pretended not to know and said, "I'm not very clear either. I paid my friends to find them from the Tao, and I didn't expect them to be so powerful. However, my friends said that both of them have the surname Zhang and are very famous in the Tao. In the future, you can go and inquire about them when you have time." After listening to Uncle San's words, Naive became even more curious about their identities. After preparing to go back this time, she quickly investigated their secrets. "Alright, don't ask any questions, are you hungry? It's time for dinner now, let's go. Let's go eat first." Wu Lao-san waved to everyone and walked out of the house without any concern. In the other room, Zhang Yunfeng leaned against the bedside, closing his eyes to rest, actually checking the system's achievement points. Divine Level Tomb Rating System Host. Zhang Yunfeng Age. 100 out of 200 Identity. 31st Zhang Qiling of the Zhang family, Soul. Advanced, significantly increases resistance to hallucinations, noise, and mental attacks. Physical Fitness. 200, Strength, Speed, Endurance, Burst, all values are 4 times higher than the average person. Bloodline. Qilin bloodline at full level. Significantly enhances physical fitness, lifespan, peak combat power, invincibility from all kinds of poisons, intimidates evil spirits, and heals super strongly. Achievement points. 1000, next stage bronze will, required achievement points of 1000/10,000, knowledge field. Master level Feng Shui Tombs complete, skill bar. Hair Hill double fingers, system package. Fake You seal, current task. Enter the 7-star Lu Palace with Wu Lao-san, Naive, Little Brother, and others. Completing the task will earn you mysterious rewards. Looking at the two rewards that were about to be achieved on the panel, Zhang Yunfeng was so moved that he wished he could enter the 7-star Lu King Palace and claim the rewards now. There are 3 beds in the room, and on the left bed, the Kuei is snoring. This guy is timid and scared enough by the corpse charm. He hasn't woken up yet. On the bed on the right is the little brother, who is sitting cross-legged on the bed, staring at the ceiling with a melancholic expression, as if he has countless mysteries in his heart. Zhang Yunfeng was also too lazy to pay attention to him, because he knew too well who the young man was and didn't want to use his hot face to touch his cold buttocks. But the little brother suddenly looked at him and asked with a soft gaze, "You know me, who the hell are you?" Zhang Yunfeng glanced at him and said calmly, "You don't need to know who I am, you just need to know that I won't harm you." After finishing speaking, he immediately closed his mouth without any intention of continuing. The young man saw that he didn't want to say more and didn't ask any more questions. The 2 stuffy oil bottles were staring at each other, but there was nothing to say, and the atmosphere suddenly became very oppressive. Step by step. At this moment, a series of footsteps came from outside the house, and Wu Laosan walked to the door and said to the crowd, "We have eaten." In the cafeteria of the guest house, except for the Kuei, everyone arrived and sat together chatting and laughing. Naively ordered a pig liver to give to the young man, saying that it was to help him replenish his blood. After all, he had put a lot of blood in the corpse cave, and besides that, he didn't dare to ask the 2 of them for help. Everyone ordered a table of dishes and several pieces of beer. While eating and drinking, they asked the waitress next to them, "Sister, this place is really off the beaten track. Did all the things come from outside the mountain by mules?" The waitress quickly said, "A few bosses are joking. Isn't this tiring to death? We have been on the road for decades now, and trucks can come in. However, a landslide occurred in the mountain a while ago, blocking the road. A large cauldron also collapsed in the mountain. When the provincial archaeological team learned about the situation, they immediately sent someone over to say that it was from the Warring States period and belonged to the national treasure level. Then they pulled the cauldron away without caring about our road. Do you think it's annoying or not?" Wu Laosan asked curiously. "Oh, really? So what happened afterwards?" The waitress replied, "Later on, this road will have to be repaired by our village at its own expense." "What kind of repair will it be?" "If there are no people, if there is no money, the repair will be suspended for half a year, and we haven't sorted it out yet. The land route is not accessible, but what about the water route?" "We came from the water route," Wu Laosan asked again. The waiter looked at them in surprise and said, "Ah. Are you really from the waterway?" Everyone nodded. The waiter said in disbelief, "Taking the waterway is something that happened before the liberation. We haven't pulled a boat here for many years. If someone else wants you to take the waterway now, it will definitely be for financial gain. You outsiders must be careful. The waterway is very evil. Over the years, we have drowned countless tourists from other places, and we can't even find their bodies. Our elderly man said that it was for Grandpa Mountain God to swallow." After listening to the waiter's words, everyone's eyes turned to Wu Laosan in unison and almost said directly, "What kind of guide are you looking for? It's clearly a matter of seeking wealth and killing people." Feeling the strange gazes from everyone, Wu Laosan also felt a bit embarrassed. He quickly took a sip of wine and then asked the waiter, "By the way, there should be quite a few outsiders here, right? How has the customer flow been during this period?" "A few bosses, although our guest house is small, anyone who comes from out of town will live here. Since the tripod was dug up, there have been more and more people from out of town coming in and out of our area every day. Some people are building villas in the mountains," said the waitress with a smile. Wu Laosan patted his thigh and cursed, "Sleeping trough, it's not worth it. The villa building in this wilderness is either overseas Chinese or tomb raiding. It seems that someone has been eyeing it for a long time." The waitress was startled by Wu Laosan's actions and looked at him with a panicked expression. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Team of Anning Company. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Chapter 9. Team of Anning Company. Pan quickly stepped forward and held down Wu Lao San, whispering, "Third Master, you're already quite old. Don't startle the young lady at first sight." He then turned to the waitress, "It's okay, my boss probably thinks this is too outrageous." Upon being reminded by him, Wu Lao San also realized that he had lost his composure. He quickly apologized to the waitress and kept getting close to her, asking for many clues from her mouth. From the waiter's mouth, it was learned that the recent influx of foreign tourists in this place is somewhat outrageous, often seeing tourist groups composed of more than 10 or even dozens of people. The most impressive thing for the waiter was a geological survey team of over 30 people, led by a woman, and the rest were all men. There were also many foreigners who pulled several carts of equipment and said they were going to the mountains for some geological survey. They had been there for half a month now. In addition, they also learned from the waitress's mouth that several ancient relics had been unearthed in the mountains, but there was nothing valuable. Most of them were human head pits filled with dead bones. After asking so much useful information, Wu Lao San was very happy and gave the waitress a tip of 100 yuan. After settling the bill, he returned to his room and discussed the next plan together. Wu Lao San took out the map of the Warring States period silk book and spread it out on the table, discussing with everyone the route to enter the mountain. After receiving the news from the waiter, everyone inferred that the ancient tomb of the Warring States period on the map must be located in the mountains. Just follow the characteristics mentioned by the waiter and the route on the map to find the tomb. The trouble is that the mountain road is rugged and difficult to walk, and they may not be able to bring their equipment inside. Wu Lao San took out his cigarette and distributed it to everyone before taking a strong puff, saying, "You can't bring equipment up there. If you have equipment, you can pour it down. If you don't have equipment, you can pour it down." The tombs of the Warring States feudal lords are usually filled with yellow intestines, straight up and down. However, not every ancient tomb is the same. We need to see on site to determine the specific situation. Then everyone began to dismantle the equipment, because traditional tomb raiding tools were not used these days. Wu Lao San took out an archaeological shovel, which was twisted together with steel pipes section by section. As many steel pipes as needed, it could be disassembled and carried conveniently, much more concealed than the wooden Woyang shovel. The Warring States period tombs are usually located more than 10 meters underground, so it is necessary to bring archaeological excavators. Therefore, everyone packed up the steel pipes, carried 10 pieces each, and each person was equipped with a shovel head. Pan Zi has a short-headed rifle that he secretly brought out of the army when he was discharged. It can be dismantled at any time and looks like a pile of rags, which others cannot tell what it is when placed on his body. He stuffed the parts of the rifle, along with a few boxes of bullets, into his backpack, which was the only hot weapon in the team. The others brought a shovel, some dry food, lighting equipment, water, dry batteries, black donkey hooves, and so on. After everything was sorted out, Wu Lao San decided to set off early tomorrow morning into the mountains because he felt that the so-called geological investigation team was not a serious investigation team at all, and it was very likely a tomb robber. Because in recent years, there are too many gangs that carry the official flag but secretly engage in tomb raiding activities. They must find the ancient tomb before they do, otherwise they won't even be able to drink soup if they go late. Zhang Yunfeng knows all the plot. He knows that the so-called geological exploration team is from Anning Company, and the woman leading the team is Anning. They will meet in the ancient tomb of the Warring States period. There was nothing to say overnight. On the second day, after having breakfast early, everyone found a local snotty child to take them into the mountain. After walking around the mountain road for more than 2 hours with 7 twists and turns, I finally arrived at the place. The snotty child pointed to a collapsed mountain not far away and said, "There we are, it's there." Naive patted the snotty child's buttocks and smiled, "I understand, thank you." Come back and help me thank you, sister. As a result, the snotty child reached out his hand and said, 50 yuan. Naive was stunned for a moment, thinking to herself, how can I still pay for leading the way? I didn't mention it before. Seeing this, Wu Laosan laughed heartily and took out his wallet. He pulled out 100 yuan bill and handed it to the snotty child. The snotty child's eyes suddenly lit up, snatched the 100 yuan bill, and then bounced back towards the way they came. Damn it, why are all the children in the mountains so materialistic now? Naive smiled somewhat bewildered. This is called human bird death, why do birds die? De Kuei scratched his head and said. Pan Zi kicked him and cursed angrily, look at your culture. If you don't understand, don't pretend to understand. Die for a bird. How many people are you going to die for? After chatting a few words, everyone continued to move forward and walked towards the collapsed mountain. After walking for over an hour, they finally entered the depths of the mountain, surrounded by jungle. As evening approached, the mountains were hazy and hazy. As he was walking, Zhang Yunfeng, who was at the front, suddenly stopped and turned around to make a silent gesture to everyone, while pointing his finger in front of him to signal everyone to take a look. Everyone looked in the direction of his fingers and saw several camouflage military tents in the jungle. At this time, the sky was hazy, and the camouflage tents were very similar to the surrounding plants. If you don't look carefully, you won't be able to find them. It seems that these tents belong to the geological exploration team. Don't make any noise, touch them and take a look, Wu Laosan whispered. Everyone nodded and then tiptoed towards the tent, only to find that there was no one inside, just like all the tents. After searching around, they found several small diesel generators, several barrels of diesel, and several communication antennas. Naive found a blood-stained phone from one of the tents, but unfortunately upon opening it, there was no information inside. It was obvious that someone had deleted it, with only a few foreign phone records. Wu Laosan frowned and said, there's hardly any equipment left in the tent. It seems like they've already gone down. We must catch up with them as soon as possible. After walking the mountain road for half a day, everyone was tired, so they rested in place for half an hour and hurriedly ate some food. While eating, I naively discovered that all the things in the tent had their labels torn off, most of which were imported equipment from abroad, which made everyone more certain that this was a tomb raiding gang and possibly from abroad. After resting, Wu Laosan eagerly took out the map and led everyone to the location marked with the fox's face on the map. He said, it should be here, give it a try with a few shovels. End of this chapter. Chapter 10. Reward Kuixing Kick Fight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Reward Kuixing Kick Fight. Just as everyone was about to take action, Zhang Yunfeng suddenly pointed to the ground not far away and said, wait, it seems like a thief's hole there. As he spoke, he walked towards the other side and found that it was indeed a 3-foot wide thief hole, which was dug at a 45-degree angle and was very neat. It was obviously dug out by a professional machine. Everyone also gathered around and lay on the side, carefully observing. They even shone flashlights down and were surprised to find that the soil layer, 5 or 6 meters deep underground, was flowing with bright red blood. Wu Laosan leaned over to the entrance of the cave and sniffed the soil with force. His eyebrows furrowed and he said, the smell of blood is very strong. This is a bloody field, there must be blood corpses below. As soon as these words were spoken, everyone couldn't help but furrow their brows. They all knew about the blood corpse. In the early years, when Wu Laogo went to Dartsi Ridge in Changsha to rob a tomb, he encountered a blood corpse tomb. There were 4 generations of ancestors and grandchildren, and in the end, he was the only one left to go back alive. This incident was written in his tomb raiding notes, and innocent people all knew about it. Sanyi, if they really got down from here, they probably died pretty much. Should we get down from here or make a hole ourselves? Pan Zi asked. Zhang Yunfeng looked at the sun, moon, and stars in the sky, then at the surrounding terrain, and said, "This is a pattern of stars supporting the moon, and this is the starting point of the dragon vein. From here, you can directly enter the tomb." "But isn't there a blood corpse below?" Naive said. "We don't have time, damn it. Let's just get down from here. Anyway, they've almost covered all the mechanisms, so there shouldn't be any danger for us to enter from behind." Wu Laosan said firmly in his tone. No matter what he does, Wu Laosan enjoys taking risks. To put it bluntly, he is not afraid of death. He would rather take this risk in order to enter the underground palace earlier. As Wu Laosan spoke, everyone also had to comply. For safety reasons, Zhang Yunfeng decided to open the road ahead and let the young man step behind, while the others walked in the middle. Pan Zi took out a rope and wanted to tie it to Zhang Yunfeng's waist, then slowly let him down. However, Zhang Yunfeng waved his hand, indicating that he didn't need it, and quickly slid down the cave wall with his limbs, and in an instant, he reached the bottom of the cave. After arriving at the bottom of the thief's cave, there was indeed a tomb of several tens of square meters below, with a huge stone coffin placed on the wall, several eternal lamps around, and a bronze cauldron that was 1 person tall. Everything is exactly the same as in the play. At this moment, the system prompt suddenly came. Ding, congratulations on completing the task. Reward skill, Kuixing kick fight. Kuixing kick fight. The mountain-moving Taoist does not pass on his unique skills, but can concentrate all his strength on his legs and deliver a fatal blow. As the system prompt fell, Zhang Yunfeng quickly mastered the essence of this skill, as if he had been practicing it hard for decades. Taking advantage of the absence of anyone around, he quickly tried his power and kicked the bronze cauldron. A pine tree. Blessed are the players who are masturbating. At the moment he stepped out, a terrifying force burst out from his leg. The 1,000-pound bronze cauldron was kicked 5 or 6 meters away with a loud roar, and it slammed into the wall, creating a big hole. The surrounding bricks and stones fell down with a loud crash. Even the bronze cauldron was kicked into a hollow. Sleeping trough, so fierce. Zhang Yunfeng took a cold breath. Boy, the power of this kick can easily kick a cow to death. Even a big zongzi that is invulnerable to bullets may have to fall apart. It can be seen how terrible the power is. Zhang Yunfeng was very satisfied with Kuixing's kicking and fighting, and said that he must let the big zongzi in the coffin have a try. Yunfeng, are you okay? What's going on below? The sound of Wu Laosan came from the thief's entrance. I'm fine, you all come down. Soon, everyone gradually arrived at the tomb chamber. The tomb chamber is a bit empty, except for a pair of coffins and a few eternal lamps. The most eye-catching one is the bronze cauldron embedded in the wall. Oh my goodness, half of the wall is about to collapse, and you can't even notice it. Damn it, what's going on with this bronze cauldron? It looks like it was smashed in by a terrifying force. Pan Zi walked towards the bronze cauldron with a puzzled expression, looked inside, and his eyes lit up. Look, there's something good inside. Everyone quickly gathered up and looked inside. Sure enough, besides a pair of dead bones, there were also many Hades, most of which were jewelry such as gold, silver, and jewelry. After seeing it, Wu Laosan said, this bronze cauldron should be used for worship, and the white bones inside are the offerings. He wears jewelry on his body, which doesn't look like a slave. He should be a prisoner of war or a burial attendant. There are so many things to be buried with, it seems that the owner of this tomb has a rich family background. Third Lord, we have made a fortune this time. Pan Zi excitedly said, as he took out his cowhide backpack and stuffed a ghost weapon into it. But at this moment, the young man's face turned pale with a thud, his eyes fixed on the stone coffin, and he said in a deep voice, "Don't move." Everyone was startled by his expression and quickly stopped their movements. They looked anxiously at the stone coffin because they all knew the young man and would only show this appearance in extremely dangerous situations. What's wrong, little brother? Wu Laosan quickly asked. The young man made a shush gesture, indicating that no one should speak. Suddenly, a strange cry of cluck 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 came from the coffin, sounding like a toad's cry, very eerie. At the same time, the heavy coffin lid was shaking violently, making a muffled sound. Everyone was startled by this sudden scene and couldn't help but step back. Only Zhang Yunfeng appeared very calm. He stood still, staring at the coffin with a cold expression because he knew what was inside. De Kuei was timid, and when he saw this scene, his legs became weak with fear. He shouted, "Ghost!" and then ran desperately towards the outside of the tomb. Zhang Yunfeng was worried about this useless and bad thing. Without saying a word, he took off the kettle from his waist and threw it at De Kuei's head. His head was very accurate, and with a clang of the kettle, it hit the back of De Kuei's head, knocking him unconscious on the spot. At this moment, the coffin board shook even more violently, as if the monster inside could break through the coffin at any time. At the critical moment, I saw my little brother half kneel on the ground in a strange posture, open his mouth, and even gave a series of giggling toads to the coffin. It seemed that he was communicating with Zongzi in the coffin. Everyone looked bewildered and had no idea what the young man was doing. Only Zhang Yunfeng knows that my brother is talking with Zongzi in it, corpse language. Only the people of their Zhang family know this language, which means that we don't offend the river, so don't force me to do it. End of this chapter.